Good morning. Can you hear me? The only
There you go.
question I have? Yeah, it should be. So that's the thing, and I have to take these messages out. So I here in Strasbourg. So that's not my normal destination, well, where I normally present with more than one monitor. But I was 2 days before an aMS event here in Strasbourg. It was event, a hybrid event. We have to go there. So I come there and make it available till now. Each day from 2 days, I have to present something new one. And here I am and will present several things. So I have to look what I can do and present this stuff. Share
That's
my screen.
that's nice to hear. You went back to hybrid sessions in Germany.
Yeah. That was the
That's good.
first. We will have it some more, and I have also coordinate or do it with some other guys for Aachen. That's a Germany event also. This is in France event, so it's not far away here, and therefore it was a good. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Perfect. Then we have to start and can jump because I have a lot of slides and a live demo, and we will see with one monitor. Here it's 8 o'clock in the morning. You have it at 2 o'clock. Perfect. Then all things are there. First, we have to say, okay, you have to join each aMS session. That's not possible, but for the most, because for a quiz, you have to see there are some prizes there, and therefore you have to look a little bit of my questions I also have, or big things that will also give you the right idea if you join this session, what will comes up. So that means you have to write the correct answer, and it's big. It's absolutely big. So now I change it because I'm a dark man. I like the dark of Windows, the dark theme, and also in PowerPoint, I like dark theme. It's green, but it's also. And I have to say, okay, add to OneDrive the new way to sync. Why do we have that and why do we don't do that? But first we have to say where I am. I'm Hans Brender. I'm called Mr.OneDrive. That Microsoft gave me the title as an MVP meeting in Seattle, USA. And normally I work as a cloud productivity evangelist. And you see, I am an MVP since 9 years. And since 9 years, I talk about cloud productivity or collaboration. You see all my stuff. At the end, you also have the possibility to have to make a picture and see that you have download the files immediately. So that's a good thing what you can do. And therefore you see the addresses, and also in there, I'm on the blog, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you want. So I put this in the background a little bit. So that's our agenda for the next 55 minutes. So we have for beginners, architecture, thinking old ways, add to OneDrive tips and tricks, the daily work, and some summary. So sometimes we have to start for the beginners because Microsoft do several things good, but not always the perfect way, and to say what is sync normally. And we have to see that. I can say OneDrive in 6 steps. Navigate to Office 365. You have to sign in. You have to click on OneDrive, click on the sync button, and click yes, yes, no, yes in that order, and done. No, that's a joke. That's the first thing. But if we have in Office 365, we are in a company, it's a little bit difficult. Therefore, we have to say. But first, I have to say what OneDrive is not. Because sometimes many have differences, and check it with Box or Dropbox or other OneDrive, other cloud storage. That's not the same. So OneDrive is not a network drive. So people think sometimes, hey, can I make a number with a letter U, Y, Z or whatever as a network drive? You shouldn't do that. OneDrive is inside Windows. Since Windows 10, it's always there. You only have to activate it, and then you have it in a personal thing. You see all the stuff. We see it later in the demo. It's not a network drive. And you should also help the people to say, hey, we should not do that with a network drive. It's not a shared drive. because it's not in there. Sometimes Microsoft say it's not good, you should not do that. But anyway, sometimes you read that the stuff and you have to look for the data. Sometimes it's old and it's new. In the new days, we do not have to have a shared drive. It's not a simple storage location in the cloud. We have to look for that. A simple storage, you can have that, but there are other storages we can use a little bit better. And it's not just as fast as a network drive. Syncing, upload and download has to be there. It's an asynchronous part, and that means you have to look. It's not so fast as a network drive have in the companies. And it's not suitable for all data type, not all data type. You should not have data inside your OneDrive for business, OneDrive personal, and a SharePoint library. If it changed data too fast and it's too big, then you should not have it uploaded in OneDrive. OneDrive needs a little bit time, and therefore it's not a network drive, and therefore not suitable for these data types. It's not like Dropbox, Box, or any other cloud storage, as I mentioned before. So then we have to look, what is it? It provides offline capability, not only in Windows. You have OneDrive, and then you can say, I have the data with me, I'm going out, I have no internet connection. Yes, all over the world, I have seen that's the same story. We do not have not always internet connection. And therefore, you have offline capability. And not only in Windows. Contains metadictory, like history functions. Means if you write a document and you write and change it and change it and change it, not only at once, over more days, each new change is a history data, and you can see what you have changed in the history. And it's up to you. If you use the business version of OneDrive, you have unlimited storage or unlimited names of the metadata. It's a brand. So if I say it's a brand, that means Microsoft always talked about OneDrive. And people do not understand. There are two OneDrives, OneDrive personal and OneDrive for business. If you work for a company, you see that it's in there and it's there. It says it's OneDrive. No, it's OneDrive for business. So that's a little bit confusion, and that's a marketing department at Microsoft. They say it's OneDrive. I talk about OneDrive for business. I talk about OneDrive consumer or OneDrive personal. That's your personal stuff. But today we talk about OneDrive for business only. It takes too long to make the difference. It's a sync technology, as I mentioned before. That means you have to look about. There are some limitations, and these limitations make it's very urgent you see these limitations. Otherwise, you will not have a correct sync, and you have to make some resets, and so as a company. It's OneDrive for business, as I mentioned before, and or OneDrive personal. And that's the biggest interesting thing, it's a basic for collaboration. Without OneDrive for business, with the data you have stored there is no co-authoring taking some times to have it in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint together. So first we have to see there are some symbols, and you see these symbols. That's the old symbol. The white thing is OneDrive personal, but you have to see here are two different symbols. It's blue and it's a blue. Normally there are so little symbols in the notification area, you cannot decide what is it. And therefore I have to say, okay, the light blue was the next generation sync line. The dark blue was the old groove line. We will see in the classic that the groove client will only be used for OneDrive on SharePoint on premises before the version 2019. Okay, but then Microsoft says, okay, we have to look with the new symbols. Now you think this white is now gray, and the next generation sync client also has this new thing. And therefore, you can have all three parts. If you have a SharePoint on premises, you have all three symbols. That means there's this one engine, the next generation sync client, with several things, and then you have the groove client. You have to look for that. So looking for the architecture. OneDrive is a good thing. It comes with each Windows machine, and you have to activate it. And that means it runs in a user context nowadays in 32 or 64 bits and in 113 different languages. 113 different languages. If you have to share your device with another person, with another language, it's not a problem. Change the language and you will have all the OneDrive and all messages in this language. It's one engine and several instances. So we see that later on what we have to do there. And it's selective sync possible, that you can say, okay, I only want this and this, but you have to look what happened there. It's enterprise ready, so we have some code policies in there that we can say, okay, make this or make that. You don't have to use OneDrive Personal. The administrators can do that with some security issues. And it's self-update. Means normally if you have in your machine, it will automatically use every day, looks into a special thing and say, okay, is there a new update for me? And if you have a new update, there is a ring system, 3 rings we have, and therefore it says, okay, there is a new OneDrive, and it makes it automatically. Microsoft is doing a lot of stuff in the cloud, means with SharePoint Online, but the client, they have no control, but they do it in this matter that they have to say, okay, it will automatically sync. If you're an enterprise company, you can also have it. We have mentioned before in the session before with Microsoft Operation Manager or Endpoint Manager or System Center or with Intune and say we have to deploy these things. We can do that, but you have to look that you have the right syncs. It syncs only with Office 365 and SharePoint 2019, as I mentioned before. So you see here on the right side, we have OneDrive Personal, we have SharePoint, and we have Office 365. And with OneDrive Personal and Office 365, here between Office 365 and Azure is a layer that's called SharePoint. We will see that later on. And in OneDrive, we do not have a SharePoint right now. I cannot say anything more, but we will have it in the future. And then we store the data completely in blob storages of Microsoft Azure. So that's the architecture we will have. And here are some things that you have to look. Synchronization with the next generation sync client means 30 million documents can be synced in each library, but performance decrease with 100,000 files. You can store the data there, but you should not do that because the next generation sync clients has a limit about all your files with OneDrive Personal, with your next generation sync client. What you have done, 300,000 files. That's the limit. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little less. That means could be on the data, but that's the limit. The file lengths are 250 gig. You have a file name with up to 400 characters, no network drive, no authenticated proxies. And there are some more you see under the link. You can have all the restriction, and you should look if you are an administrator and have to say, or you have an LG Pro and have to say to the administrator, look at this size, there is limited. And that means then other people do not have problems with OneDrive. So in the synchronization, to see all the stuff, SharePoint Server 2007, 10, 13, and 16, you have with the Groove Sync client, that was a middle symbol, and all other stuff with SharePoint 2019 is using next generation sync client, and also with Office 365, all document libraries and all document libraries protected with IAM, aMS, or sensitive labels that can be synced with the next generation sync client, your OneDrive Axie. But we have to look now a new way to sync. Why? Looking for the old data. Therefore, we have here a little slide, and we have to see there are some document libraries. Some, it could be more, it could be less, whatever you want. And you have also, if you have an E3 plan, you have OneDrive for Business. So each OneDrive for Business is for the user. Represent 1, 2, 3 users here on this slide. Means if you have 1,000 users, you have 1,000 site collections on the SharePoint Online, because each OneDrive for Business is a site collection. And this is also for a document library. And not all data should be here stored in the OneDrive for Business. Sometimes it should be stored also in a document library. Because if you left the company, OneDrive for Business will be deleted later on, and therefore other things we have to do, and the data should be moved to document library before. So on the left side, we have Windows 10, and we have also maybe Outlook. We have also Word, Excel, PowerPoint on our machines. And you see on the right hand, we have a web browser. We need that also, and we have iOS and Android. So we have to look what this is there. And it's Teams. So in Teams, sometimes I came to companies, and the company says, oh, now we want out Teams, and therefore we need no SharePoint anymore. That's wrong. We have to look for that. So in Outlook, you can have and handle that with Exchange Online. You can put all together with the document libraries. You see OneDrive for Business can be synced and have all these data, and not the complete document, only the link we should share with other people with mail. But you can also sync this stuff with Outlook on the web. That's the same thing we have to see there. And you have to see there is also possible that you can handle several stuff with Windows 10. On your machine, you can synchronize these stuff to OneDrive for Business, your OneDrive for Business. Or you can have it with OneDrive Personal. I say to the companies, and I advise that they should kill OneDrive for Business, because that's a security issue if you have OneDrive Personal in your company, because admins cannot control what you are doing. So all this stuff can be handled, and we see we have a little bit more, and that means, okay, what does it take? Now I have 2 of these cloud storages. As a consultant, I have several companies I'm working for, and they give me also a complete license for an Exchange SharePoint. So then I have also the second one. That means not only my stuff here on the right side, but also on the other side. You can have up to 9 of these possibilities. Means that are 9 icons in your notification area and 1 gray icon for OneDrive Personal, if you are allowed to use that. So that's a possibility what we can handle. And this is also possible that we can handle if you are working with other stuff outside the business-to-business documentation. That's a little bit complicated. It's another session where you have to do that. The documentation on docs.microsoft.com says, okay, we have a document there with 127 pages. Therefore, it's a complicated thing to do that, but means these people in another tenant have a possibility to sync also on your machine over Exchange Online. But anyway, they don't have to realize that they have to only authenticate once to our own tenant, but we have control about these possibilities, what we can sync. So that is also possible to have it with Word, Excel, PowerPoint. That means you can sync all this stuff, and that's okay. We can do that from a document library. We can write directly with Excel on PowerPoint directly. That's not the same if you store it on Windows 10 and sync it up. That's my preferred method, and we will have no problems. Also, if you have a less connection like today, but you have to see it's difficult. And that makes it not so only that we have to say, okay, that's the best one we can do. We also see that we can handle an iOS. But in iOS, we have also, that's not a full sync, it's a one-way sync. Because with your iOS and Android, with smartphone devices, that is critical. In this person, you always have your smartphone have a connection to the internet. Therefore, they look there, and it's not stored. If you not say explicitly, this file will be stored on my smartphone device. That's the same in iOS and Android. So therefore, it's a one-way sync. You can change that with Word on mobile and Excel on mobile or something else. That is possible, but it's not stored on the phone. And last but not least, Teams, we have all this stuff, as I mentioned before. Yes, with OneDrive for Business, if the recording was started before, and therefore in OneDrive for Business is the data later on, and that can be handled to other persons after the aMS event. That was the old ways thing. And now we say add to OneDrive. So Jeff Teeper announced that 2020, but he says add to OneDrive. And that's the philosophy. It's not the right title. It's not add to shortcut to OneDrive, but all these we mentioned, see that. Add shortcut to my files. That's the right name. Or remove shortcut from my files. But why we should do that? We have to look for that. Because I have said it for you, there is one magic number, 300,000 files. And to have all this data together, it handles, you can also, and you see that in a demo, that for all OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Online and OneDrive Personal, these number are the count of the number, not the byte number. You can have up to petabytes on your device if you have another step when you have to say, okay, files on demand. But you have to look. If you are in the root folder of a library, you see that's my company name and it's in SharePoint and I'm here. And you see in the root of the document folder, other things we don't have to see there. There are several things. There is a sync button or add to SharePoint to OneDrive. If you say, okay, I'm working at the marketing and I will have it, if your new people come, then they have to onboard it and then they can do automatically do this if this is the marketing side of SharePoint. Then they have the data completely. But sometimes there are so many data and we want to have it as, say, one step deeper. And that's not possible to press a sync button. So with add to shortcut to OneDrive, we can handle that. So you see, if I have it all here, all files here, 13,495, that's not big much, but only for the synchronization, we have to look for that. That means you can sync that. On the other hand, we have to say, if we go here, that's also the same in the documents, that's here invoices, and we see we have it here stored in years. That means, okay, if I'm here, then I can say, okay, it's only 170 files. I don't need 21. I don't need 19. I only need this year. And therefore, I have to say add shortcut to OneDrive. So here you see add shortcut to OneDrive. But from a theoretical perspective, you see this on the slide. OneDrive, here, that's me, that's user A. And I have here a folder A1, A2, A3. So I want to share the folder A2 with another user, user B. So he has some folders B1, B2 in his OneDrive for Business. And I talk for OneDrive for Business and not for OneDrive Personal. And here you see now as is AT. As I A2 means that you have all this data there. He received this message and then he can see it in OneDrive shared with me. There is no automatic thing that you have to do it like I mentioned before with a complete library. But here you have to go on the website and see what's in shared with me. And then you can say, okay, I want user B add shortcut to my files. Then we see that. The difference is here, you see a new symbol in OneDrive for my files on the web. You see the folders and files on the web. So you see the folders and files in Windows Explorer. And you see that in all other devices you have and on your smartphone automatically. That's the most important thing. Automatic on all devices you have. And later on, if you want to reuse this, first I have to say, okay, like any shortcut on the system in Windows, you can rename the shortcut. That means in all other files here in OneDrive, if you rename stuff, it means it comes also on the other side and means that we change the name also on the original. So here we can rename the folder, but we have to look it carefully. That's only for us that we can have it. So therefore, you can also have a general section in Teams. Each team session has a general. And if you want to sync that, you could not have it with more than once. But if you make a shortcut to them, you can change it and have to say what's not general, and you change it not in the other slide. So if you want to remove, if user B wants to remove this stuff, the shortcut, you can do that at any time. from the web or from the File Explorer. Now the difference also, if you do this with a standard form of synchronization, you can say, okay, I want to unlink this stuff, but the files are still on your machine. You have to delete it manually. Here, if you say, I want to reduce it, I want to say, I want to remove my shortcut, then all files will be removed and on all machines, including smartphones. So it's not only with my files, I take it inside the company. It means this function is only available internal, not external. So therefore, I have to change my file, my folder here in this document, A2 to A2 of another user in his OneDrive. So now I have to say, okay, I'm in a document library, as I mentioned before. And I'm a user, user A is in this document library and want to change and want to say, okay, I want to have this folder D3 also available in his OneDrive. The same story as I mentioned. Okay, user B sees a folder D3 in his OneDrive shared with me. User B add a shortcut to my files. User B may remove it, as I mentioned before. It's the same story all the way. So now it's time to see that in a short version. You see here, posters, add shortcut to my files, adding one, and it's done. Then you can have it and look in my files, and it is different from the file, these posters. He has this new icon created. So, okay, that was this one. And I show you here some examples that you have it at home. That means also before you change and try it, you can look what's there. Means on my mobile, you see that here are new simple, and if we have it in little big pictures, you see, okay, that's a shortcut of in the mobile section. And we can also have the remove part here. If you are longer on top on this tree, means 3 files on this folder called 1, you can have to say, okay, it opens this stuff and means you can make it available offline, you can share it, or you can also remove these data. Again, it will be removed here in mobile and on all other Windows devices you have. But you have to look, if you have on one of the machines, you don't need it in the old days, and you have something synchronized on the classic method, on one of your devices, and now you want to do it as a shortcut, then this attention comes up. That's an error because you can only sync once. That's not possible to have it do. So now we have a live demo. Therefore, we have to stop here and have to look what we have. So that's my Windows machine, means we have it here in all these area. That means here we have some documents. So that's a SharePoint. And we have here the possibility that SharePoint means here SharePoint library. That's another company. So you see here more than one. I have 3 blue icons and 1 gray icons, but I'm less than 300,000. And therefore it will work. Here you see OneDrive for Business, and you see here the first 3 are here from shortcut with them, and you see that are synced in this one. Okay, now we have to go and want to see, and we have to go, and here I am on a site called B2B Marketing, and I want to say here I am, you see the sync button, but I can also say if I go down, now your sync button is gone, and you can only have shortcut to my files. But we can also have it here or going back and have the completely stuff. We see, do it here out, add shortcut to my files. That means here completely or part of that. Add shortcut, that's done. Adding a shortcut, it's gone. So now I have to see, and I have to in shared files, and you see in my files, sorry, in my files we have this stuff. And now you see document B2B marketing. So in your OneDrive for Business, you have a shortcut for this, but not only on the web part, although on the other part. Going back to this one, and we have to wait upon some seconds because of less internet connection, but it will start here and will come later on. Here is it, documents, B2B marketing. And now I can say, okay, select this file and put, that's Windows 11, what I have here, and we have to look for more OneDrive. We can have share, view online, remove shortcut. Here is a move shortcut, but we can also have some more possibilities, a rename. And I have rename all my documents that I mentioned with add shortcut, and that's a productivity tip. And then I say, okay, with an underline possibility, because it comes before all these alphabetical stuff. Rename that. And now you see I have all my shortcuts right in this order at the beginning of my OneDrive. And that's the difference. So now you don't see that, but I cannot have. I have to handle that with my mobile phone. You don't see that. I have to do that. That you see what we can do. We have to go to OneDrive, and we have to use it. Okay, there's a new one, and we have to look for that data, and it's not private, it's my thing. And now I have to see, and I do now tap, as I mentioned before, and have to say, okay, B2B marketing, and tap on it. And then he says, in this part, I have to say that changed. And now I have not done, now it's gone. So it's gone not only on my smartphone, I have done that, although on this device and my other devices completely is the same stuff. So that was my short demo here. And we have to look for the next part. Listen, I have to go back, not to this one. I have to go back to the PowerPoint. That was my live demo. And we have to start here again. And it's done. Completely add one shortcut to OneDrive means only for all people in your organization, no external. That differs to OneDrive personal. There is also a shortcut to OneDrive, but we don't have to do it right now. Therefore, I say it only OneDrive for business. Any folder from OneDrive can be done with a shortcut. Any folder from any SharePoint document library you can mention, it's also possible. And you may get an error if you already sync data through shared with me. For external users who share the folder with files with you, you still must use the synchronization method. External user. So the question sometimes is, when choose which sync method? So I have to say it depends, because it's not so easy to handle that. Sometimes the file structure on SharePoint libraries make it not happen that you can have it. If you have seen with these years, 2019, 2020, 21, that's a good method. But sometimes the migration will be done without any structure change from the file servers to SharePoint sites, a document library there, and it's not the same. You cannot have this method sometimes. Therefore, you should not, although one thing, that you not have too many files there, because 300,000 is a magic number. And that, therefore, I have to say it depends. Sometimes if you cannot change it, and in a quick way, before migration, you can also have too many documents in there. Then you have to change it in two libraries, for example. So that's a method, and you have to say, okay, automatically you can have it and have one or the other. But it depends. Therefore, I cannot say that's the thing. Look for that. That's the SharePoint library 1 and 2. And on the left side, you have 3 Windows 10 machines with 3 different users. And one of them or 2 of them have the SharePoint library synced, and the third user 2 and user 3 synchronization with the SharePoint library. That means, okay, there press the sync button. Easy part. So if we look for the new method, and here you see it, then you have all these stuff here in this library. That means, okay, he has synced and has the data there, but all data has to be there. On the other hand, on the right side, you see user 1, user 2, user 3, and we do it differently. You make a shortcut in this way. And also user 3 also knew and only this SharePoint library too. So looking for that, we are going to them, to this library. I have it here with a family, and I say, okay, I only want the pictures or from grandpa and grandpa and grandma. So then I have to say the complete stuff or one of them and add shortcut. Press the button, add shortcut. Then you have it later on in Shared My Files, and you see it here. That is also there in this area, and you see these files are also synced. Only manual sync, add to OneDrive. It can be not automatically. Sometimes you need the part where you have to say, hey, can I read a little bit more? And I normally say, yes, you can have this stuff with docs.microsoft.com. But add to OneDrive, we don't see anything about that. But I have read some articles about. You can read again. That means add to OneDrive is global available. That was in December 2020. And it's not new, but the think stuff is new. And I play also another article, add to OneDrive the next step. The third one in February 21, the differences in synchronization that you can read what I have to do and have said today. And that's the possibility that we can have that. Here are the articles, and you see it's written down, and you can see what's happened here. But anyway, we can do that. You can do that if you want that. And last not least, 5 steps from Classic Sync to add to OneDrive means, yes, we know add to OneDrive is a symbol. It means add. It's add a shortcut to my files. So that's a different one. But Microsoft is said add to OneDrive. So some tips and tricks before we have time for questions. So you need always tips and tricks because sometimes it's a good thing and you have to know. People say often to me, we don't see new updates and we have the old engine there. Therefore, you have to look if you can reach from the engine these 2 URLs, means one client SFX aMS or glive.com. If you can reach that, or cannot reach that, you have to go to the administrators and have to say, we want to have that. If it's automatically done, then you can have it. It's normally in the Office 365 IP range, and I show you for these stuff, there is a lot of IP range in Office 365 URLs, and that means we have to scroll a little bit down. And if you see, here is Exchange Online, what we see, and you see here the category. The category means sometimes required. The admins have to do that all Exchange functionality will work. So therefore, sometimes they are required, sometimes they are optional. So we have to scroll down, And here you see SharePoint on OneDrive for Business. And the first one is SharePoint, that's for OneDrive for Business, that is required. Second is optional. And then you see here, glive.com and one client SFX, TCP 443 and port 80, that's default and it's required. Also the next one I show you as the next tip, star.vns is also required. Going back to that, you have the second one. If it's a little bit slow in your machine, that could be that you have no access to star@vnswindows.com. And therefore, you should also mention that is required. Sometimes it's forgotten. And then it's quicker on your machine, means it was crossed from pull to push. That means it's immediately, if you have something in your thing, it's immediately there, and it is a little quicker than you normally think if you have not chance to see it without the notification service, Windows notification service. So the third one as a tip, sometimes you have the possibility, and you see here the OneDrive Insider preview. If you are an insider, maybe you are, then you have it in 2 versions. Now I have it in 64-bit version. It's automatically converted if you have a 64-bit Windows machine. If you have a 32-bit, there is also available in preview with 32 preview machine. Means you can have all this stuff, but you have to look. On the normally stuff, you don't see the insider versions. Microsoft has no time for that. They talk to them. But I have a page made with versions of Hans Brender Black. And then you see here there is an insider version. And you can also, if you want, but you have to do it manually installing, and see there is a 32-bit or 64-bit version you can download. On the other hand, you see here is the insider version. And this number with 160, it's an old one. You see, it's not the newest one, but you can look. Let's look to the right now versions. And you see here, that's the table I want to see. Now we are in 21205 for the insider version. You see the other R, that was the weeks before, 6th of October here at end of September. And this version was the insider version. And then they have to say, okay, we want to make a release version. And that means a release version for the production ring. So this comes very often, means I think 12 times a year. But it depends. It's not the right thing, you have to say. And you see, it's go back, and we have now 21150. And that is for the deferred or enterprise ring. In the past, it was an insider, then they released it to the production ring, and then they decided, okay, this is good for the deferred ring. And if you have to manually this stuff, you have to look when it comes a new version, because now it's up to you if you have no automatically think. Therefore, we have to look for that. So this is this one. And we have still a summary. So there are some summaries. I have to say, if you want to read a little bit more, go to these bit.lys. I have inserted here the short thing. That means that's the blog of Microsoft. Or look, here are my description about more than 850 articles in German and in English. Whatever you want. I think English is a better version for you. And although you have to see some new functionality, there is a roadmap for Microsoft 365, and they say, okay, what's in development, what's rolling out, and what is launched. And if you filter that with OneDrive, you only got the OneDrive versions. That's an easy part, but the dates are not always correct. You have to look, they are planned to release that. And sometimes during the pandemic and so on, it was not released to this one. That's the same in Teams and on other stuff. Therefore, be carefully, but you see they are working on different versions. One more thing. I have one, and no, that's not an iPhone, but I want to show you I have written or not written. There were 2 MVPs from Austria. In Austria, one is an Office developer, and the other one is an AI MVP. And they came to me 2 years ago and have to say, okay, we want to digitize you. Okay, I'm a human. We cannot have to digitize. The principle was they want to digitize the knowledge of Mr. OneDrive. So we have to say, okay, what can we do? What's the best thing? Why do we need an artificial intelligence person for that? And we have it now, a bot. It calls community bot for OneDrive. So I started with the OneDrive bot, and Microsoft says, no, if OneDrive cannot be part of the name, and the vice president later on has to say, okay, we decided If it's possible, if you say community bot for OneDrive is a better name, I think you can have that. Means this is available in Teams. So Hans needs sleep. The bot never sleeps. We run the bot for Microsoft Teams, and you have all the knowledge what I have to introduce for end users. So you do not have to fill out about the 40 group policies that we have in OneDrive. That's IT stuff for the admins. But here we want to have it for the user. The user wants to know what's the difference between OneDrive and OneDrive for Business. It's available, but if you have no access to it, it could be. Some administrators at companies, and I decided to, do not show that. So that means we have to add different, but here now we have it in two languages, in German and English. We are working on other languages. It's not so easy because I have to translate this markdown language to another thing. Means you have the question. And therefore, we have released last 14 days the community bot for OneDrive as a web chat version. So each of you have now the chance to ask bit.ly OneDrive bot, OneDrive as we tell the name, and immediately bot, and then you find the same here in the web chat version. So it's on a website and you can ask him also all questions. That's the thing. And therefore we have to say, as a recap, join the aMS quiz. You have heard the magic number. The magic number is for you one part. And maybe you have a lucky winner. They have good prizes, I have heard. Okay, look for that. And also we have to say for a big thank you, and a big thank you for all these sponsors. So Microsoft as a company sponsors although Powell Software or BitTitan, that's a migration company from Seattle, not Seattle, from Bellevue, that's a part near where the Teams story is built, and also Epos, Jabra as a hardware live rent, and all these sponsors. Without a sponsor, that is not possible that you have such a great event with more than 650 people came together and have this around the world with different people. So I have to say thank you. And now it's not time for names. And I have to look for there because with one monitor, it's not so easy to have the one. We have to look for that. And there is one question. This is IT Portrait for aMS happening right now. Add to OneDrive. So if you have a question, you can talk it and put it here in the chat. Then I can answer it. They are all happy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hans. So for the attendees, if you have any questions, this is the best time to drop them. You can unmute yourself. I think it should be very manageable. Just unmute yourself and you can drop your question to Hans.
Maybe you have a question.
Not really. It was a good presentation. The bot is a very helpful one. I'm gonna try and look for it later on.
Yeah. That could a little bit help. You have to know, in Germany, I have some mid-size and enterprise companies, and something that is not all thing. If you do that with the administrators, I have a slide deck about 500 slides. Makes 2 days only about collaboration in OneDrive. So with the completely rights management, what you have, if you share this stuff and so on, that's the same thing what we have to do it now. But that's in deep. You have the people. Sometimes the people say, oh, OneDrive, 2 days? Why? Because it's deep. Then they understand the concept. And some companies, if you have a special company, have to say, okay, I do not want to share with external. That's the most important thing. Then I have to say, why? There is two parts of external sharing. One is external sharing as an anonymous link. And then I have to say, yes, you know that. The admins can give a time from 1 to 730 days. That means 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days, it was only 90. I have to say, reduce it, admins. Reduce it to 60 or reduce it to 30 days. Because an anonymous link, I send it to you, you can send it to another people and they have access.
Yeah.
So reduce it for a minimum of time for all the attendees, all employees in your company. So let's say 30 days. And if I share something, can reduce it from this 30 days, and I have to say, okay, if I try it to PU, it means it's in 5 days, it's ready. I can reduce it also. So then the link will automatically be closed. And also you can have it also with, if it's a Word document or something, then you can say, okay, I want to have this Word document also, or I can do with the external link and have, I call it MFA for Dummies, with an additional password. And if I send it to you, I can say it, okay, you have it there, and then it's okay. Without the password, you cannot reach the link what I have shared with you.
Yeah.
And therefore, it means 2 days.
Yeah. But they already reduce the default hour for the anonymous link, or is it still?
No, it depends on the company. That the admins have to say.
Policy.
Therefore, the admins have to say over the complete company. It depends. You have to say, okay, sometimes we can't do that if they will know it. Let's say for finance. Do the finance department has to be with external? Maybe yes, but most no. So we can say for this library, we do not want to have external sharing. For another, let's say marketing, we can have it because we have to tell the people what we are building or what we are selling. So therefore, you need external stuff, external thing, and that's okay. You can have that. But the global time is for this method external, and means all departments with the exceptions, and then means, okay, they have to stand it up 90 days and can reduce it, or 730 days. Sometimes one company has to say, and Microsoft has established that. But I say less for security reasons.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's another thing, and therefore that's the thing that we have to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for the bot, I can show you the bot is easy part. I have to look for that. Looking for Teams here. You have the chat. Normally you have to look in the App Store. That was the App Store here. And here are the community bot for OneDrive. But you can also say, okay, community, and then you find that. If you do not find that the people the admins have disable this function, then you have to go to the other one. But normally if you have installed, you see community bot for OneDrive, and then you can have change the language, whatever you want. I have to say change language, return the stuff, or we see. Now it looks for this command, and I can say in English or German, as I mentioned before, we want to take it in English, and then you can ask him whatever you want. What is the newest? And I can also have wrong. We use artificial intelligence, newest OneDrive version. Well, we have to see what he is doing. So the question is gone. The question is analyzed. AI is looking. They have see because I have read it down. But you see, hey, that's the same thing. With the OneDrive, you see the insider version 2.05. That was the same stuff. So the community board also knows that. Yes. The good thing is we have to install it in the Teams version once. That was a horror story. It's not so easy. But if we have installed it once, I can add new questions, new versions. And if I say publish, it's immediately available to all Teams users around the world.
That's nice.
Try it.
All right. Any other questions from the attendees? Oh, we have one from CJ. What are the challenges of selling OneDrive to users as they are happy with SharePoint?
The OneDrive is your longer thing that you also have all data like documents, pictures, and your desktop over in your cloud. So if we have that in here and you have it immediately and can have it on another machine and so on, and all the stuff means for me, what I have on my desktop, it's me and has nothing to do that I have it on SharePoint. There you have all the, let's say it back up, but although I can handle it and have to say, okay, I want to do it with Sasha, here's the next session, the 10 ways to secure a Microsoft 365 environment, the next session, and I share it with Sasha, and we build stuff about security and OneDrive, and then we have a document here, and then I can share it also with Pio, our moderator. So that means we three now have it. We don't need SharePoint, we need OneDrive. And after that, it will be say, okay, now it will be globally in a SharePoint. We can move the stuff out of my SharePoint because I have shared it with Sasha and Pio, and then I move it to SharePoint. And therefore, that's a challenge that you don't have to selling that because the users can also handle that. The same rules is there. It's in SharePoint. It's part of SharePoint. Therefore, I do not have to sell it anymore.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Hans.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions? All right. Going once. All right. So if you guys have any other questions, you can reach out to Hans. They can reach out to you, right? I think your blog.
Yeah,
is there.
I think I have forgotten one thing,
Mhm.
and I will also show it to you. That was the thing at the end. Normally you have a feedback slide. I have to look for that again. Let me look. Takes half a minute from here. This one, and I have to add it again. Short. Then you can go back. I have missed that. So, and now I have to show the PowerPoint again. Though you see it. So you can make a picture or use it bit.ly OneDrive 211016. That's the day of today, and that's a OneDrive session. Therefore, you find this slide deck completely and have it immediately.
Awesome. All right. I'll share the picture on this chat.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Hans.